All right, everybody, welcome to episode 78 of the Fantasy Timeline, a proud member of the Dynasty Addicts Podcast Network. I'm Josh at Real Fantasy TL. I'm with my main man, Bill at Super Dupaflex. Bill, happy Cinco de Mayo, brother. How you doing?
Hey, good, man. I haven't had one drop of alcohol today, so yeah, I haven't been able to celebrate, but I guess my coffee will have to do. How are you doing, my man?
That's good. That makes one of us. I have my tequila seltzer here, so I'm getting in tune with my Cinco de Mayo-ness. And we'll ask our guest here if she's been celebrating Cinco de Mayo yet. We have Katie Flower, the diva of Devi. Katie, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm really excited to be here. I really appreciate the invite, and absolutely, I'm going to make up for Bill, the Super Dupaflex dude. I've been having some margaritas and a couple of tacos. And then now I've got my diva crown and Coke. So I'm sipping slowly, enjoying it.
She's got a crown. We might have to call her the Queen of Devi after this episode is done.
Every diva needs her crown.
That's right.
Hey, listen, I'm not going to argue with you because when it comes to Devi, and especially this time of year when we're all rookie draft season, we're all in our drafts. We're trying to find the guy that we want. We're trying to, wheel and deal, and we all want our, Trevor Lawrences and our Justin Fields. Katie's like, where's my Austin Watkins at? Where she's looking at the real deal. Guys that we probably haven't even talked about because she's known about them since they were in the 6th grade. So we're playing checkers out here. She's playing chess. But let's get into the news. Dude, the draft started not with Trevor Lawrence getting drafted 1, but with the news that Aaron Rodgers is fed up. He's pissed off. He wants out of Green Bay. So who knows if that'll actually happen, but just for the fun of it, Bill, we'll start with you since you are the Lions fan, the Green Bay rival. Where would you want to see Aaron Rodgers go, whether it's for personal reasons or for fantasy reasons?
Well, for personal reasons, I'd like to say the AFC. But yeah, I mean, if he was going to go somewhere, I mean, obviously it would have to be somewhere that has the tools to compete right now. He's not going to want to go to, I don't know, he wouldn't go to Detroit. Let's put it that way. So I'll pick them. So I don't know. I mean, the rumors to San Fran and Denver make a lot of sense, I guess. I think I would like to see him in Denver just because of all those wide receivers and, see what he could do with that. And I think the scheme might be, I don't know if Rodgers is necessarily the kind of guy that's going to work really well with Shanahan. It seems like they might have different ideals and both, super strong personalities. So I think I'd be interested in seeing him in Denver.
What about you, Katie?
Earlier today on Twitter, I saw somebody post, and I don't remember the name, so I apologize. But they posted that Vegas had taken down the odds of will Aaron Rodgers get traded, and now they've got the Denver Broncos as the high favorite for the landing spot. So wow. I think there's more than just a little bit of juice to that rumor. I think that John Elway is working his magic, and it looks like from what they posted, and I apologize that I don't remember the source, but it was either NFL Network or Ian Rappaport. Somebody had said that the terms of the trade were Drew Lock and the next 2 or 3 firsts plus, this and that. But even still, trading Drew Lock is like nothing. Okay, let's face it. He's not quite a wash, but he's not. I really don't believe in his overall package. And so Aaron Rodgers with those weapons and that defense, I think that could happen. John Elway, he's relentless. And that Vegas wouldn't put a bet on something if they didn't have an inside source.
Yep.
Yeah, that'd be
ahead,
crazy. I'm just saying that would be like insane. Like all my Broncos fans would be stoked.
Well, and the crazy,
why wouldn't you be? I mean, he's still a young guy. He's way younger than you and me, Bill.
I was like, is he? And then I'm like, well, he is younger than me. So
yeah.
I mean, the AFC West would be insane, though. You'd have Patrick Mahomes, you'd have Justin Herbert, you'd have Aaron Rodgers coming into town. You can say what you want about Derek Carr, but he's a good quarterback. I mean, he's not a bum. He's the fourth out of those four, but man, that's just like that every team is scoring like 30, 35 a week. And Katie, you mentioned that, they actually have a defense there in Denver, and their first pick at 9 was Patrick Surtain Jr. So, they even bolstered it, throughout the draft. Yeah, that would be crazy. I don't know besides Denver, because that just seems like Bill said, with those weapons, I mean, you have Sutton, you have Judy, you have the Tim Patricks, the KJ Hamlers. Then you go to, the running backs. Right now they have Melvin Gordon. They just drafted Javonte Williams. Tight end. They got, Alberto, who, I mean, he did flash the games that Fant was hurt, and obviously Noah Fant. I mean, it's just like, geez, how do you stop those weapons guided by Aaron? I mean, Aaron Rodgers has been putting on masterful offenses with Aaron Jones, some of Devontae Adams when he's healthy, and Jamal Williams when Aaron Jones is hurt. So it's just like, to go from one extreme to the other would be kind of crazy.
And you'd have a lit Aaron Rodgers who wants to set the world on fire. He'd be like, right. He was the MVP. You pair him with John Elway, and just isn't that the most John Elway thing, to go out and get Aaron Rodgers? I really could see that it would happen. And then the question is, lock or love.
Well, that's actually where I was going to go with this. Because
are awful. Like, that would be like, I still don't think that would diminish Devontae Adams, but everybody else would be marginalized on that team.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I was gonna ask that question. Like, who would win that job? Like, is it the guy who's been there a year, and got a feel for it a bit, or is it the guy who
Bill
I've never liked personally?
I don't think you asked that question correctly. I think it was more who doesn't lose that job more than who wins that job. Because, I mean, yeah, Love has a year in the offense, whatever, fine. But, second string snaps throughout the season, you ain't doing all that much, You throw here and there when Aaron Rodgers needs to take a sip of water, and that's about it. So, I mean, geez. That's almost like asking, do you want to get punched on the right side of the face or the left side of the face? It's going to suck either way. Like,
I mean,
who cares?
I was just kind of thinking about this. Do you think that's, I mean, what do you even put the likelihood of this? Like, I get that the odds, if he changes teams, Denver looks like the favorite, but that still doesn't necessarily mean that it's even likely to happen. Like, I think that like if I'm Green Bay, there's no way I'm letting that happen. You know what I mean? Like, or is this just all a ploy for him to get an extra year of money? Like, I guess that's my biggest thought is like, there's no way I'm going to let that happen if I'm Green Bay, because my team's built to be, compete this year.
And I guess it's all about, I mean, obviously Green Bay knows Aaron Rodgers better than any of us ever will. But, I mean, I guess they have to look at it and say, is he serious? Because if he says, I'm going to retire and go host Jeopardy or just live in my big house with my beautiful fiance for the rest of my life. I've made hundreds of millions of dollars. I can do that. Then
Good point.
they should make the trade because it's better to get, even if it's Drew Lock and 3 firsts and other picks and maybe a defensive player or two. That's better than just getting nothing. Maybe I think it's $23 million Aaron Rodgers would have to pay back from signing bonus money. I think he has that lying around somewhere. I think he would be fine to do that. And, but if you think it's just a bluff, then yeah, say, all right, do what you have to do. Call the bluff and hope that he's not being serious. But yeah, that's a tough one because none of us know. I mean, this could all be, like you said, bluster to get an extra year, or he could seriously just be pissed off and ready to go.
When a guy is getting older and still has it and doesn't want to retire and doesn't want to leave their team, like I think he really in his heart does love Green Bay. I think he loves his teammates. His teammates have tweeted he's not going to retire. So from a fantasy perspective, we can rest well with the knowledge that this dude's going to be playing somewhere, whether it's Green Bay, Denver, wherever. He's going to be playing somewhere in 2021. I don't think he's going to just flat out retire. I think he's got, even though he's a diva, and I apologize for all divas out there because
he's not the real diva.
Yeah, I mean, he's acting but anyway, I don't know that he's going to retire straight up. I think he really does want to play. He's just trying to use his leverage because he's aging and he wants to just stay with Green Bay. He's trying to get them to make a commitment. Like, think about it. You're married for a long time, and then they bring in this young, good-looking second round, first round, second round pick, and they don't put weapons around you, and it scares the crap out of you. Like, all of a sudden, your whole stable world starts to crumble around you.
Yeah.
He just wants some security. He wants to know that he's the man. Is an MVP.
A little positive reinforcement, right?
Exactly. It's like, don't put me out to pasture quite yet, dude. I got some playing time still in me. I got some magic in this arm.
And Katie, you bring up a good point because Aaron Rodgers has a real unique perspective because he was that guy many, many years ago when Brett Favre was still slinging it for Green Bay. And I mean, he has a unique point of view because he's been on that side of it as well, where it's like, yeah, buddy, like just, wait a couple years. We're grooming you to get ready to take this thing over. Brett is getting old. We're going to get him out. And he may see the writing on the wall just because he was in that spot many, many years ago. And he may be like, hey, this is kind of like what was happening when I came to town, and I don't want to be around for that. So it'll be interesting. In a way, I kind of hope it does happen. Obviously, to like
me too.
A Denver. Well, yeah, because you're a Lions fan, but to a Denver type team, obviously, because we've seen Tom Brady just do this last year. He leaves the place that he always played. He goes to a team that has a ton of weapons, a pretty freaking good defense, and he's throwing a Lombardi Trophy from boat to boat. So I don't know if they're going to be throwing it off of boats in Denver, but he's probably looking at it and saying like, man, we could probably do the same thing here. Obviously, it's a little bit more difficult. You do have Patty Mahomes in town, and you do have Justin Herbert, but he probably can see the same thing happening if he goes somewhere with a ton of weapons. So it'll be fun to watch.
If you were a season ticket holder in that division, that'd be fantastic. I mean, if you can go into a game, but
yeah, that's like the opposite of the NFC East. If you're a ticket holder there, you're like, can I give these things away? And then the next and last piece of news, Bill's favorite guy, Kerryon Johnson, pour one out for him because he got cut. He's currently unemployed, even though I'm sure somebody will pick him up just to kick the tires and see if there's anything left in the tank. But Man, I remember last year I was telling people to buy Kerryon for a third after DeAndre Swift got drafted. So, throw your third out there, buy yourself Kerryon Johnson. And it never materialized. So I'm sorry if anyone actually took my advice. I don't think anyone ever listens to me, so I think people are fine. But
I mean, a third rounder, it's worth the it was worth a shot. If that blows up in your face, then it's not that big of a deal. So
I don't think anyone actually listened because I haven't gotten heat on Twitter yet about
there you go.
All the third round picks that were lost due to my advice. So that could be thankful for that, but. Yeah, it'll be interesting, as teams start going to camp. I'm sure someone will sign him just to see if they could do anything with him. It'll be interesting to see where he signs. But man, I thought he was going to be a good one. And Katie, what did you think about him throughout? I mean, you probably knew about him when he was a freshman in college. Are you surprised by the way his NFL career has gone, or did you kind of always see this coming?
He was never one of those outstanding guys to me in college. He was kind of like a Trey Sermon. He was good at a lot of different things, but not really great in any one particular facet. And he had some decent metrics, but to me, the one thing that we could not ever determine until we started listening to interviews, it's the head and the heart. And I do try to scout players and listen to interviews and learn as much as I can about them. He just doesn't seem to have the heart for the game. And I could kind of see, even this news did not surprise me. They've got Jamal Williams. And then behind that, then they drafted Jamar Jefferson. And then they picked up undrafted free agent Rakeem Boyd out of Arkansas, one of my Woo Pig Sooie boys. And I love Rakeem Boyd, but he didn't test out all that well at his pro day. And he's probably going, if he's lucky to make the team, he'll be a practice squad guy. But it now makes sense that they got Jamar Jefferson to back up Jamal Williams, and they got Rakeem Boyd for depth so that they could cut Kerryon Johnson. The writing was on the wall. I was looking at that backfield thinking, why are they signing undrafted free agents? So it makes perfect sense. I'm not surprised. And I don't see Kerryon as somebody that's going to stick anywhere with the mindset and the heart that he's got. He doesn't have the heart and the fight and the want to, from everything I've heard and seen.
Oh, there you go. So Kerryon, hit the dusty trail. Hit the dusty trail. You out of Detroit, and who knows where you may end up. But all right, go ahead, Bill.
So if he gets picked up by Atlanta, do not freak out about it.
Right. Yeah.
Or immediately make an offer for Mike Davis when it happens. Because
hope that guy freaks out.
Right.
Yeah.
Because
dynasty is such a fickle thing. A lot of people treat dynasty like redraft, and you've got to see through the highs and the lows and stay with the middle ground. You can't get too high, you can't get too low. You got to just stay middle ground and don't overreact or underreact. That's my best advice for anybody that plays dynasty.
Yep, that is the absolute correct way to go about it. It's just learning what that means, and
yes,
but that's just experience.
Right. And it takes patience. I mean, dynasty is a slow play.
Yep.
It's like, when she says no at the bar, you got to just keep trying and trying until you finally get the digits, It's like sometimes it takes time, and the better things come to those who wait.
That's the truth. I wouldn't be married right now if I had taken the initial no as the final answer. So I'm with you on that. Yeah, it's funny. They say it on every football telecast ever. Football is a game of inches, but that's kind of what dynasty is. Dynasty is just making you make a small incremental change, and you're hoping it's for the better. Sometimes you'll make a big move, but for the most part, it's like, I just want to get 2%, this team 2% better and 2% better. And maybe this trade I made makes it 5% better. But you're just, working these small percentages until they add up, and then you're like, holy crap, this team is actually really good. But it's not because one blockbuster deal or one, we're in rookie draft season, one rookie draft pick just completely changed my entire team. Probably not.
Right. Yeah.
People like, yeah, I got Justin Jefferson late last year. I got Justin Herbert late in the first round last year. Yeah, but if your team was in the championship this year, it's probably not just because of Justin Jefferson, who didn't break out until week 6 or week 7, and it's not because Justin Herbert balled out for most of the season, but you probably had a good running back or two, a good tight end. It's the whole team. It's not just one player, one trade that makes it. So, yeah, I'm with you guys. It's 1 inch at a time in Dynasty. So that was the news, and now we are going to go to what we saw on the timeline. And this first one here is from Corey at Corey D. Russo. Who do we like better in Dynasty? He says this is a 10-team PPR, but I think for the question, we can just doesn't matter what the league setting is. Javonte Williams or Jalen Waddle. So, Katie, since you've been looking at all of these players for a long time, who do you like more? Do you like Javonte or do you like Waddle?
I've been saying for at least 3 or 4 months to anybody and everybody that would listen, this running back class is weak. So if you get the chance to get one of the top 3 running backs, and Javonte Williams is one of those top 3, you do it. The wide receivers are a dime a dozen, they're deep, and they are more, I wouldn't say team specific, but role specific. Unless you have the opportunity to get a real alpha dog wide receiver that's a game changer like Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, I think he's going to be good. And I think he's going to be decent for fantasy purposes. But I just have more trust and faith in the running back. Some people look at Dynasty as a portfolio, and I want something that will accrue in value that I can flip for XYZ. I'm more of if I can flip a player, that's great. But my goal is to build a really solid team, a core of players that I can start and rely on with other guys that I can stream and have that constant pipeline of either picks or players coming in. Guys, I don't want to have to rely on rookies. I want my Dynasty core to be solid veterans to where my rookies, I love Jerry Jeudy. He had a decent rookie season. A lot of people are already out on him. He's one of the best route runners that came out of Alabama, and he's got decent size. There's really nothing to say bad about him. He's got great hands. The only thing you could say bad about him is Drew Lock is his quarterback. But if Aaron Rodgers goes there, can you imagine the spike in Jerry Jeudy's value? And if you're not patient in Dynasty, you're going to lose out. They're not a shiny new toy, so you trade them for this year's shiny new toy, and you hope that they hit. So Jalen Waddle strikes me as the type of player that will have his peaks and his valleys like anybody else, but wide receivers are really easy to obtain or stream on your fantasy, weekly starters. Is he going to be a weekly starter compared to Javonte Williams? Now, Williams has to contend with Melvin Gordon. However, he's aging. He's 27 years old. And we've seen it before. Cream rises to the top. Nick Chubb came to a crowded backfield. Alvin Kamara came to a crowded backfield. People faded him in rookie drafts because of the situation. They didn't have a clear starting path. Guys like Keyshawn Vaughn were escalated above and beyond where they should have been because they had a perfect landing spot. So I'm doing air quotes if anybody can't see me. And to me, I'd rather have the talent, and I'd say positional scarcity plus talent, I would take Williams over Waddle.
All right, Bill, we're hitting you up now. Are you Javonte-ing this, or are you going with a little Waddle here?
Yeah, I think I mean, I'm Javonte as well. Like I mean, it's just solely exactly what Katie said at the end, the positional scarcity. I mean, you have to grab those, and there's just like I appreciate the talent of these wide receivers, but like we know how the game is played, where they spread the ball to every wide receiver. It's not like it once was, where you had two guys that were out there all the time, and then those are the guys that got all the targets. It's everybody's getting 2-3 targets, and then you really need these guys to hit as a one of those top 12 wide receivers in the NFL, or else they just kind of fall into that puddle of 40 wide receivers. So why do you want to take somebody that's going to score the same as a guy that you could trade for Cole Beasley or something? I mean, that's just because I traded for him, so that's why I brought that up. But a player like that, you get him for what, a third round pick maybe now. And so like, that's the kind of thing, like you can spend your value in certain ways, and just, I don't know which one of these wide receivers is going to hit. Like, I mean, obviously we all know at the top, who they are, but like once you get beyond that, those obvious ones, your guess is as good as mine. So I'd rather go with the position that, I know there's only a few in this draft, so the value in that way is already bumped up. And if somebody needs that position, I'm going to get more than I would if I drafted that wide receiver.
And yeah. I love Tua. I do. I loved him in college, and I think that he will eventually be okay. But he's still learning. He just came off injury. He's still learning. He's trying to learn the NFL game. To expect him to make a huge year 2 leap to where he can distribute the ball to a ton of targets and make Jalen Waddle fantasy relevant, I think that's more going to be Jalen Waddle year 2, year 3. And then I think that I could buy him for about the same price later on. But Javonte Williams, I think, will rise in value more so in the first year or two. And so that's part of the factor too.
Yeah, and I agree with both of you guys. Jalen Waddle to me seems like the kind of guy, he might go 8 for 150 and 2 1 week, and then like 2 for 30 next week, and you're like not going to know when to start him, because you're like, is this the week he blows up? Is this the week? And we're starting to see a trend. And every year, every rookie draft, we're like, man, look at all these wide receivers. I mean, we said this last year. I mean, last year we had
2 years.
We had CeeDee Lamb come out. We had Justin Jefferson come out. We had T. Higgins come out. And those are the guys that hit. But we also had Henry Ruggs come out who didn't hit for you. We had Jalen Reagor who came out who didn't hit for you. So every year we're like, look at this group of receivers that's coming out. And Bill hit it on the head. Like, you have your like top 15 guys, and then you got like 40 other guys that could be anywhere from wide receiver 16 to wide receiver 56. And you're just like, you don't know where they're going to end up. Like, hey, we've been a pro Deontay Johnson podcast since day one. Dude, Deontay Johnson could end up wide receiver 14 this year. He could end up wide receiver 34 this year. I mean, it's just like, we don't know. Running backs, it's a lot different. If you know who your elite guys are, that list ends real quick. So if you have one of those guys, Bill said he made a trade. I made a trade today. I traded the 108 for Stephon Diggs. Well, the 108 was Jalen Waddle. So pretty much I traded Stephon Diggs for Jalen Waddle straight up. Like, I know what Stephon Diggs is going to be. Like, I know he's that dude. He's one of those top 15 guys that I just talked about. Barring injury, obviously, I know he's going to be there. Like, Jalen Waddle, dude could be wide receiver 16. He could be wide receiver 60. Like, no idea what his range of outcomes is so wide that.
And you just illustrated a great point, Josh. when it comes to Dynasty, a lot of owners, they look at the shiny new toy and they undersell themselves. Like if you're going to take the risk, if you're going to assume the lion's share of the risk, and I don't mean the Detroit lion's share of the risk.
That's been a risk my whole life.
Yeah, exactly. If you're taking the lion's share of the risk, you've got to give yourself several outs, just like in poker. Like if you're going to bet and go all in, then you better have several different players that can hit. If I'm going to trade the 108, for Stephon Diggs, I want to get more than just Jalen Waddle to help insulate that risk, whether it's a future first or some other veteran player, something that I can use. You can't just trade 1-for-1 with a veteran of that kind of caliber. That is going to shoot you in the foot more than it's ever going to ever help you. So if you know that there's risk, there's inherent risk. And if you're going to assume the risk, you better insulate that risk by having multiple pieces that can hit. And at the end of the day, it may look like a huge win for you 2 years from now when Stephon Diggs is starting to slow down because he's a 28-year-old man. But
oh yeah, those were the days.
Yeah, but the whole point is by getting the multiple pieces, you at least give yourself a fighting chance. Even if you believe in Jalen Waddle, I get that. But give yourself the chance to tie the trade, not even win the trade. Break even. Why would you trade to break even? You want to at least give yourself a chance if you're going to take that risk.
It's hard, right? Like, cause like I get it. It's exciting. Being in the draft is exciting, and so I get it. And like you said, the shiny new toy and every possibility could happen. The ceiling is so high for everybody because we don't know yet, and so it's like I get it, and that's like where maybe the discipline. Kind of that's important, and the experience as you go on, you kind of go, okay, maybe I don't want to do this, but I mean, I've made those trades before. I'm sure we all have at some point over time, but like, I've even today I made a trade for a veteran, and I was like struggling to pull the trigger just because I'm like, man, like. What am I giving up with this pick? And, it's just one of those things that we all have to fight and kind of take away like our heart and just use our logic here. And that's going to save you a lot.
Right. Like you're old enough to know the game. Let's make a deal. I'm harping on your age, Bill, because
no, it's cool.
About it
hey, I'm feeling it, so it's good.
Yeah, no, it's all good. But let's make a deal. Do you want to take what you know or the shiny new toy behind box number 2? And we'll give you a few hints about what's behind box number 2.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be just a watermelon, or it could be a new car.
Yeah, it's transportation, and then you open it, they pull it out, and it's a burro. So,
yeah, I mean, as long as it's a Joe Burrow, then that's cool. Next quarterback that's going to be on your team for a decade.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, and Bill is humble because he's in that draft with me, and I forgot where you started. You might have been 102 or something like that. And he has steadily just kept creeping back in this draft and just accumulating assets. I mean, it's just like he's like, yeah, I'm at 107. Someone wants to trade for 107. Okay, cool. Like, you give me DeAndre Hopkins and Chase Edmonds, and I'll give you this shiny 107. And people were like, okay, cool. And he's been a master at it. And another thing I'll say, and the reason why I even thought that obviously wasn't the original deal that was proposed to me, but I watched what happened in another one of my rookie drafts where someone actually traded Stephon Diggs for the 106. And that deal went through. And I said, man, I wonder if that would work for the 108. And I just gave it a whirl, and he hit accept on it. And I was like, I legitimately did not think he was going to hit accept. But But I said I want to try this because I saw someone else do it, and obviously, if he does hit accept, I'm gonna have Stephon Diggs. That's gonna be pretty freaking awesome. So, I was also in a unique position because I have 4 first rounders in that one, so losing one wasn't like a huge deal to me. But like the fact that it worked, I was like, man, this is freaking awesome. I got to do this more often. So yeah, you live and you learn, and with that experience, you get a little bit better. But let's swing it to the next one here from CJ Brecht, aka the Wolf, at Under Siege 79. All about the rookie drafts right now. Yeah, we've been talking about it. But what about those that managed to win it all last year by selling away those assets? What's left for us after the rookie draft is over? Give me some of your favorite upside players you can get once the draft is over. And before I pitch this to one of you guys, you can trade back into the draft. I mean, trust me, I had a couple teams that went far and they don't have picks, but you can get back in. I mean, you have assets, you have future picks that you can trade to get back in. So you don't just have to sit and twiddle your thumbs unless you want to, and that's fine too. If your team is stacked and you don't need any of these rookies, then just sit around. But Katie, who are some guys that maybe are going to go late in your rookie drafts or go undrafted that you might have interest in stacking on your team, whether it's a taxi squad or maybe the last couple spots on your roster?
Yeah, so I reached out to CJ. I followed him on Twitter. I made his day. He was so excited. He said, it really is Cinco de Mayo. The diva of Debbie just followed me. Like, this is so cool.
That's what's up.
Because I wanted to ask him, what do you consider deep? Like, is your rookie draft 3 rounds? Is it 4 rounds? Like, how deep of a sleeper are you looking for? He said in one, it was 4 rounds. The other that is just finishing up is 3 rounds. So the question really depends upon how deep you consider a rookie draft. If you've got 3 rounds of rookie drafts, guys that I like to target either as first priority waivers or end of the 3rd round type guys would be, even though this is a very, very weak running back class, a running back that plays a specific role that's 1 injury away and has decent draft capital and decent metrics and size and everything else has more, I think, of an opportunity than the wide receiver, because the wide receiver market is so saturated. Let's say you hit on one of those later wide receivers. It's like throwing a stone in a pond that's 300 feet deep. It's going to take a while to fill that up. There's so many wide receivers. Nobody's really going to give you value when they flash. Whereas with a running back, when they flash, their value boosts like sometimes insanely. And especially if the running back, the lead running back, is out for any particular period of time. So a couple of guys, if it's 3 rounds or later, and even in 4 rounds and later, that I'm looking at would be guys like Chris Evans. I think he's got the size. He's decent athlete. He has a receiving profile. So you want to have a guy that can not only tote the load, can run. And another one, and I can't even really pronounce his name, is Kene Nwangu.
Yeah, Minnesota.
Yeah, in Minnesota. Like, they seemingly drafted him as a special teams player. My buddy Scott Connor, and he and I are pretty much lockstep. He's got more juice, I think, than just only a special teams guy. They may not be sold on Alexander Madison as the backup, or even if they are, this guy, if he plays special teams and if he has some juice and starts to flash, he could be a decent play. We know that Dalvin Cook has had an injury history in the past. Doesn't mean he's going to get injured, but just somebody that you want to keep your eye on. Those are the types of players that I would be looking at.
Bill, anyone that you've seen that you
Yeah, I mean, it's I agree. Running backs are what you should be going for later on. I mean, most of the wide receivers that are drafted late are totally and only like special teamers. Unless they're like small school guys, I think that would be the only time I would say maybe that's not the case. But if it's like a big school guy that's getting drafted in the 6th round, the odds are he's a special teamer. So running back just gives you more opportunity, especially in the late NFL rounds. If you're picking guys from back there, I don't necessarily know. Like, I'm not good with knowing metrics and all that, but I like Jarrett Patterson getting picked up by Washington. I think that he could find a role there. Just because he's a little different than the other backs they have. And that's kind of what you got to look for, is guys that just fill a different role. So the guys like him, I mean, something that's interesting, at least I've seen it. And I mean, I don't know if this is even like, I'm interested to hear what you think, Katie, but like, I know Tutu Atwell is like 6 inches tall and, weighs about as much as my coffee mug here, but
You want to know the coolest stat about Tutu?
yes.
Kyler Murray can set his beer mug on top of his head.
That's funny. So like, he's been going in the 4th round. So for me, that's one of those things that I like to at least pay attention to, is players who were drafted early, but they're falling in the rookie drafts. And so that's an inefficiency. Now, granted, he might not do anything, but at least he's somebody that I feel like they're at least going to give him a shot because he was drafted there. I mean, I get it, these speed guys, and I know he's probably going to be a special teams guy for them, but like these speed guys, sometimes that's all they're getting drafted for, is to, pull the defenses back a little bit. But like, who knows if he pops it a little bit? Like, he's the kind of guy that I'm willing to take a risk later on in the 4th round. And be content, because I know I got such a huge deal in comparison to the NFL draft capital.
Yeah, and Bill, you bring up a good point. I mean, even though I don't want Tutu Atwell on any of my teams ever, you bring up a good point. Like, the Rams put up, good draft capital to draft him. So obviously they are looking at him as a piece of that offense. I don't know what that piece might be, but this wasn't a 6th round guy that got, taken in the 190s. This is a high draft pick, high draft capital, and it is good to find those somewhere. Katie knocked out some of the running backs. I think some tight ends, if you're in like these 3-round, 4-round drafts, that may not go. Hunter Long, Boston College, he got drafted by Miami. Yeah, there's a ton of weapons there now. We talked about Jalen Waddle earlier. Will Fuller is there. Devontae Parker still putzing around. They already have Mike Gesicki, but just kind of looking at some of the stuff he did on tape, I think he can play a little bit. And hey, if he's out there hanging out on your waiver wire after 3 rounds or 4 rounds, scoop him up, especially if you're playing in any tight end premiums. And then another one, which is a lot deeper of a dive, is Kenny Yeboah. He got picked up by the Jets, and Katie don't like him, but I mean,
it was an immediate reaction.
There's not a path of resistance there. So I'm not saying he will be anything, but I like taking those guys that don't have they don't have to work through a lot of mess to get to playing time. So doesn't always work out, but if those are some of the guys hanging out on your waiver wire, those would be a couple guys that I might keep an eye on. Katie says don't keep an eye on Kenny Yeboah, but
I think that tight end takes so long. Even Hunter Long will take so long. He's more of a blocking type guy. He looked pretty good at Boston College, but I don't know that he's going to be employed in that same kind of way. If you don't get Pitts or Freiermuth in this year's class, I like Tommy Tremble. He's a little bit intriguing for where he went. But really, I mean, I like my quarterbacks and my tight ends on the older side. I like my wide receivers and my running backs on the younger side. And it's partly because it takes that long at the quarterback and the tight end position to really come into your NFL game. And rather than go with the highs and the lows of the rookie, this and that, and then eventually by the time you give up and you drop him on waivers, then all of a sudden he's the next gold standard and you've already been over him. Like, let somebody else make that mistake and clog their roster, even in tight end premium. Like, that's a big, huge long shot, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I hear you. I think the reason why I pose those two guys, I mean, Hunter Long, yes, but especially Kenny Yeboah, like if he is ever to become something, I agree with you. I think it's going to be a very long play. But I think as a championship team, I think you have the ability to take more of those risks, especially if you think your team can contend for more than just this year. If you think you're kind of geared up for 1 year, these may not be the guys you want to take. But if you think you have 2 years out of your team to contend and be a contender for the championship every year, I'm not opposed to stashing those guys and just seeing. And if not, I mean, you have Thaddeus Moss, and then you just kick him to the curb. And
well, and see, that's where our mentality with tight ends is a little different, yours and mine. And hey, it's whatever, but like, I kind of agree with Katie here is like, I'd rather put like running backs like on my taxi and hope one of those guys hits, because the likelihood of one of the premier tight ends in the draft, I mean, just think about all those, like, who was the Oliver, Oliver was like a huge hyped up tight end, there's so many of these tight ends and we don't even know the right guys to take. And I mean, I guess that kind of goes along with your argument a little bit, is like, George Kittle, like who was taking George Kittle, like in that rookie draft, and like, I mean, it was the athleticism and that was the big thing. And so like, if I am going to like take a tight end and throw him on my taxi squad, it's going to be a guy who's got monster athleticism, because those are the guys that I think have the chance to pop early or later. You know what I mean? I'm worried about just having somebody sitting on my taxi squad and not providing me any opportunity, I guess, that first year, or, I'd just rather have a running back in there.
Or, and hear me out, you're one of the contenders, you're the 10, 11, 12 of whatever round, 3, 4, trade the pick to somebody that's willing to take that shot for a future. Let's say you trade the 4th for a future 3rd. Okay, so then next year you trade that 3rd for a future 2nd, and you're already a contender.
Yep.
So you don't even need to take those picks. You don't have to take that risk. If you're a contender, just trade those picks, the later ones. You want to consolidate or use them to help you move up.
Yep.
To get that Jamar Chase or Najee Harris or whoever that can help your team in the near future, as opposed to a long shot. And then eventually that long shot will end up on the waiver wire and you can get them for $1.
Katie, what is your rankings of the top 3 running backs?
I don't do rankings, but...
Or who would you pick first, I guess, is my question.
Right. So as my personal preference, Najee Harris by far is the one. Travis Etienne is not that far behind. And then Javonte Williams.
Okay.
Yeah, I love it. And I love your... I don't want to say strategy, but your thought process about what to do with those picks. It's something that I like to do when I can. If I have 2 seconds, say I have like a 205 and a 209, I'll try to boost those up, and I'll start with 201 when he gets on the clock, and I'm like, hey, do you want 2 picks instead of 1? He might say yes, he might say no. Next guy, hey, do you want 2 picks instead of 1? And even if I just move up to 203, there's probably going to be a guy I like a lot more than at 205 or at 209, because especially this year, I mean, I think maybe the max you like in this draft would be 206. I think that's where the cutoff is. And some people may say it's even sooner than that this year. But yeah, I like doing that too, or I like trading for future picks. I mean, hell, if somebody's like, hey, here's, you have this 2021 or fourth, excuse me. I'll give you a pick in like 2023. Like, yeah, like cool, whatever. Like you don't care about it because it's 2 years away, but it's gonna be a way better pick than whatever this 404 is that I have going on right now. And I can move that for something too in a deal during the season if I need to grab a player, or like you said in that draft, I can move it to get something else. So
the nice thing about future picks, people discount them, especially the further away they are. They discount them. I don't know why, but that's the nature. A first does not take up any roster space.
That's exactly it.
A future pick does not take up any roster space. And having them is like having money in your bank account, as opposed to trading away your future picks for now assets. You're basically paying with a credit card. And then next year, you're going to trade to get into the first to get that shiny new toy. And it's going to cost you a lot more than if you had just kept the pick in the first place. Even the 112 in most rookie drafts, you could still flip that for the future first plus maybe a second round pick. That's just a pretty much given, unless it's an incredibly weak class. And even in a weak class, there's always shiny new toys. So accruing as many future picks, especially if you're a contender, is a great strategy because, again, you're just building your bank account. And then you can spend it when you feel like you need to spend it. If you need to spend it in season because you got injuries and you're about to go in the playoffs and you just lost Saquon Barkley to an injury or Christian McCaffrey to an injury, well, then by gosh, you've got the capital and you don't even have to trade. You can trade your own future pick. You don't even have to trade the best of your firsts. If it looks like a weak team, you can trade your own pick and somebody's willing to bite.
Yep. I dig it.
I love it. And this merges perfectly with our next question, which is from PTW Fantasy at PTW Fantasy. Is it better to grab your guy way too early in a rookie draft or trade down and risk missing out and settling? And, I think it's a mix. You know what I mean? Like there's certain guys that I want to get. They're usually like more top of the draft guys. But I mean, I also am like, I'm such a logical trader. I'm always like, does this trade make sense? Am I way overpaying? I don't mind overpaying a little bit, but am I like selling the farm to get this one guy? So, I will say at a point, even if it's a guy I love, like, all right, I can't do it for the price that you're asking for, and I'll move on. But, I'm kind of like a mix of both. Like, I will try to trade up and get my guy or take my guy earlier if I can't trade back down. But there are also times that I won't sell the farm just to get, Justin Fields or Trey Lance, or Najee or Pitts or whatever the case may be. Bill, what's your strategy? What's your thought process on it?
I'm very rarely trading up, and quote unquote overpaying for a player. I don't trust myself, my evaluations to like, I know I'm not smarter than an NFL team, right? So I'm very much, I mean, maybe I'm more logical, maybe, but I feel like I don't have guys typically. There's guys I like, but usually what I'm doing is I'm looking like, okay, in the top, there's these tiers of rookies. Who do I like in this grouping? So maybe I move up a little bit to grab like positional scarcity, like maybe there is a running back in this tier that I like and I want to make sure I get them. Then maybe I'll pop up and do something, but I'm never like going to move from like, 112 down to 102 because I truly believe like this guy, unless, well, that's a bad example. Like, I just feel like if I'm out like this year, for example, like I think that there's like a top 7 in super flex leagues that you see, and probably a top 6 that go almost in every super flex league. Like if I'm at 106, I'm fine with whoever falls to me. I don't necessarily feel like I need to trade up to 102 unless it's for me to get a position I want. So I'm not typically doing that. I'm just going to let it fall where the chips may, so.
What about you, Katie?
All right. So first of all, I want to say, hey, J2 Dub, good question. These guys didn't answer your question, so I'm going to answer your question.
Cool.
The question is, do you take your guy, even if he's not ADP where he should be, or do you trade back and risk losing that guy? It's not about trading up. It's
yeah. Then I just take my guy.
So the question is, and I'll give you a couple of examples. A couple years ago, I've been following A.J. Brown since he was a freshman. He was my favorite wide receiver in Devy as a wide receiver, even though he wasn't the top in ADP. I had scouted him, the whole story. After his freshman season, the only thing that kept me from getting multiple extra shares of him was that he also was playing baseball. And he had San Diego, I believe, had already drafted him as a center fielder, even though he was still playing in college. And so I wasn't sure at that point if he was going to, and I didn't want to take the risk in Devy. But in rookie drafts, a lot of people faded A.J. Brown because of his landing spot in Tennessee. His ADP was somewhere around 110 to 203, 204 that year. I had the 107, and I felt that was a little bit too early to take A.J. Brown, even though I loved him. He's my guy. But I felt like it was a little bit too early. So I traded back just 2 spots. And what I got in return was Robert Foster. Yeah. And then A.J. Brown was taken. And I was sick. And I'm still sick. Yeah. So the answer is, if you've got conviction on a dude, like this year is Rashad Bateman. He's got a lousy landing spot. There's a bunch of wide receivers in that same range. ADP-wise, in Superflex, Rashad Bateman's going mid-second. But if you're at the 202 and you can't trade back and you love Rashad Bateman, gosh dang it, take Rashad Bateman. Or whoever your guy is, I advocate take your guy. If you can't trade, don't get cute. Stick to your guns, take your guy. This is fantasy. At the end of the day, you're going to feel sick if you lose your guy for a cute little trade back.
And that's actually exactly part of what I was going to say, and then I completely spaced, was that this is entertainment at the end of the day, for a lot of people. I mean, I know some people do it like, as a business and that sort of thing, but like for the majority of us, this is entertainment dollar. And so don't overthink stuff, because the percentage of you being right between this guy and that guy, because this is the ADP, like the difference is so minor. Like, even if you feel you're taking them early, like his hit might be, let's say 38%, the possibility, and this other person's 42%. Are you really going to be that upset? So yeah, I agree 100% with Katie. Go for it. I mean, obviously within reason.
Right. I mean, you don't want to take a guy that's 4 rounds away. Like
correct.
But if they're within 6 to 8 players, you cannot trade back and get a decent value. And I don't believe in trading back just to trade back and get a marginal small piece.
Yep.
Right.
So if you're going to trade back with risk to lose your guy, you better make it good. I've been burned. I know, I've learned, and I'm trying to help others. That's what I do. So to answer your question, P2 Dub, if your guy is one of the guys that you've got conviction on and everybody in fantasy thinks that he's got decent value, there's a tier of 6 to 8 guys, and especially if it's wide receiver. If it's a wide receiver, take your man.
Yep. And don't get cute. I mean, that's the magic. That's like something you should always use as a mantra, really.
And And it's funny because I haven't been playing Dynasty as long as either of you have. And
Another old comment.
Yeah, I know, right? They're adding up.
Listen, Bill is old. Katie's just a diva, so it don't matter. But
Divas never age.
AJ Brown was my first introduction into like, dude, like why are you letting the outside noise cloud what you feel about the guy? Because I was like, I loved AJ Brown going into that draft, loved him. Then he went to Tennessee, and you heard the echo chamber. Marcus Mariota sucks. That team doesn't even throw the ball a lot. It runs through Derrick Henry. You heard everything. You heard all of that. And I just
Lamar Jackson now with Rashad Bateman.
I just walked into the middle of the echo chamber, and I was like, oh my God, I can't take AJ Brown. Like all of this stuff that these people are saying. And I just watched smart people just scoop them up and obviously all those smart people now are very happy with their AJ Brown investment, or they're happy with the return they got once they traded AJ Brown, whatever the case may be. And I'm sitting here like, I didn't get any AJ Brown, and I feel worse about it. And since that day, I was like, you know what? I'm going to take my guy. I don't care if the community laughs at, no, you took a guy earlier than you were supposed. Like, Bill nailed it. This is entertainment. You know what? I'm going to be happier taking the guy that I believe in and the guy that I think is going to be a baller over another player that someone else says is going to be a baller. And then even if they both flame out, I'm going to be way happier with the guy that I liked on my team than I am with someone else.
Well, let's think about this, right? Like you get these picks for free. So what are you really losing? You know, every year you get more of these things. So if it doesn't work, all right, it's a lost opportunity. That's it. Yeah. You didn't make your team worse.
And it's funny because I took a guy that I took a guy today actually that Katie tweeted about a couple days ago. And Katie, I think you'll remember this once I start reading it. Which rookie QB got the exact draft capital and landing spot expected, got O-line help early, got 2 dynamic offensive weapons early, and is sliding to 108 to 111 and super flex rookie draft since this happened. And Katie knows who, you know, obviously she wrote the tweet. She knows I took Zach Wilson today at 105, and I know a lot of people were like, 105 is too early for my man Zach. But I mean, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, in a super flex draft, your first 4 picks should be quarterbacks. That's just me. Katie's nodding. I love Katie nodding her head no at me because I love the differing opinion. But so Zach Wilson should be in a super flex draft, should be one of the top 4 picks. But Katie, you've been nailing it. I've been in other rookie drafts where Zach Wilson is like 108, 109, and it's like, I don't understand why.
Right. And not only all of those things that you mentioned and that I mentioned on that tweet, and then I also added one other thing. Andy has the clearest path to starter. Like, he's going to be the starter day one for the Jets. That's not necessarily great when it comes to quarterback. I think quarterbacks do need to be groomed, and Patrick Mahomes learned a lot by sitting behind Alex Smith. So I think that Trey Lance sitting behind Jimmy Garoppolo is not a bad thing. I think that's going to help him. I think Justin Fields sitting behind Andy Dalton, if that happens, will help him and give him time to learn the playbook and learn. The game speed is so much faster at the NFL. The windows are so much tighter. You know, the play calling and just, you know, you may have been always taking from a shotgun snap as a quarterback in college, and now all of a sudden you got to learn the 3-step, 5-step, 7-step drop. You got to be able, the vision is different. You got to be able to read the defenses, and the defense is stronger than what you ever faced before, even if you're in the SEC. So all of those factors, a lot of it is between the ears with a quarterback that we don't get to scout. We don't get to see how quickly they can calculate, how quickly they can learn everything. And just like a wide receiver, learning the playbook and learning how to run routes in the scheme of the offense, working in conjunction and coordination with your teammates so that you're either pulling the defense away or you are a secondary read or a third read. You're available for the quarterback coming back to the ball. Just these little nuances rather than thinking on game day. You want your guys to be fluid and just automatic, like it happens. That takes time. And so any rookie quarterback is going to struggle. And then on top of that, if you don't have a good offensive line and you're constantly being rushed, then you start to see ghosts and you start to get skittish. You start to doubt yourself. There's so many things that are working against a rookie quarterback. And quarterbacks, rookie quarterbacks especially, the average hit rate is 2 per year. 2 per year. And there's 5 that went in round 1. Mm-hmm. So tell me now, who 5 years from now, who will still be a starter? You can't tell me that. I can't tell you that. So you want to take your shots, but you also, to me, you want to get the best value. And so if you're taking 4 quarterbacks, 5 quarterbacks in a row at the beginning of a rookie draft, you're paying the same price for 105 as the 101. You're just taking higher risk because you get the worst of the 5 picks. So if there's some space, I want the Mac Jones at 110 or 204. I want Zach Wilson at 107, 109, a little bit of space. Let at least some of the running backs and wide receivers go off the board. But to take 4 or 5 in a row at the beginning of a rookie draft, that to me doesn't make value. Everybody is the same price. You're paying the same price for Trevor Lawrence, and the guy with Trevor Lawrence is feeling pretty good, basking in the glow that this is an elite talent that is generational. And I don't believe in that word. It's way over popularized, but
every year.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying. So like, I do think that Zach Wilson is a hardworking guy. I've got a friend of mine that lives in Utah, knows the family. He's a great kid, comes from great cloth. He's a bookworm. He loves to read the playbook. He loves to watch film. He worked with Drew Brees in California with John Beck training camp. So he does a lot of the work that you would expect and want. He's not just, he looks like a smarmy little guy, a smarmy little kid that is just like, but no, this guy's a hardworking guy. So for Zach Wilson, what I'm saying is if he drops to 7, 8, 9, 10 in your super flex, that is value. That is great value.
Yeah, and I again, it's kind of it's so interesting to hear you talk about it because you're believing in the value there, and I'm kind of I've said this whole time, by the way, and I'm not going to stop saying it now. I personally felt that Zach Wilson was the QB4 in this class pre-draft, but everything that you outlined, I mean, the Jets really made a concerted effort to not do to him what happened to Sam Darnold. I mean, they traded up 10, 11 picks to get another offensive lineman because they understood that besides Mekhi Becton, they didn't have anyone else there that could protect their new quarterback. They traded premium assets to get that guy. But it's it's one of those things where it's like, all right, they're really, and then they go out, they get a Michael Carter, they get, you just look by their draft and what they did in free agency with Corey Davis, that they're really trying to actually build an offense around a quarterback and not just throw him out there and hope that he survives. Now, none of that means that Zach Wilson is going to become the next elite quarterback. Obviously, he could still flame out even with the weapons and the offensive line and everything around him. But I was actually impressed by what the Jets did. And that's a weird sentence to say.
Yeah.
But I was impressed by what the Jets did because they could have stayed at, I think they picked either 23 or 24 in the first round. And they could have stayed there and they could have gotten whoever the best available offensive lineman was or the best available receiver. But they traded up because they really felt that Elijah Vera Tucker was going to be an elite offensive lineman, and they wanted that for their guy. They didn't just want to hope that the guy at 23 was going to be on that same level. And it impressed me, and that's the reason I started liking Zach a little bit more, because I was like, man, they're putting everything around him. So if he's gonna win, he's gonna win, and if he's not gonna win, then obviously, like we've been saying, it doesn't matter what you put around a guy. I mean, we were talking about Drew Lock earlier. Drew Lock has a whole bunch of stuff on offense and a pretty good defense, and he didn't win. What's going on, Bill? You're muted. Still muted.
So Steve in the Peanut Gallery just had a quick question, and Katie, just however you want to, Cliff Notes or whatever. How would you approach a complete rebuild?
I've either done it because I took over an orphan that was bad, and I like to do that as part of a challenge. I've got a lot of different dynasty teams. I like startups, I like dispersal drafts, and I like the orphan rebuild. I have never honestly had to rebuild one of my own teams. So that's a good thing, a good sign. But as far as how do you approach a rebuild, you have to be patient. You have to get maximum value for the assets that you have. For example, I just took over an orphan. The best asset in a super flex that they had was Josh Allen. And I tried to trade Josh Allen before it's a rookie and Devi. Devi is very risky. As much as I love Devi, I have the presence of mind to be able to say, look, you want multiple shots. It is high risk, but it can be high reward. If you have the capability to look beyond the rankings that everybody puts out and just look at players, and you love college football and you want to watch a little bit of film and learn about the players. And that's me. So I feel very confident in my own talent. But so Josh Allen, my key piece, and really not a whole lot else. I had the 101 pick in the draft. It's tight end premium 1.75. And even though I could have got Zach Wilson, I took Kyle Pitts at the 101. I figure I want good players. I want players that are going to hit. And I felt that the likelihood Kyle Pitts is going to hit compared to Zach Wilson, the quarterback, when there's 5 quarterbacks taken, I will take my shot with the tight end, especially he has a great landing spot in Atlanta. A lot of people are like, yeah, well, Atlanta has a lot of weapons. Okay, true. But look what Atlanta's done with tight ends in the past. Austin Hooper, Hayden Hurst. I think that even if Julio Jones does get traded, he's a wide receiver in a tight end body. He just has the tight end by name. He can play off the line. He can play on the line. He's a great blocker, but he's a kind of guy that can get downfield. And I think he averaged 18.1 yards per catch, which is insane for a tight end. Exactly. And he's athletic and he's big and he's everything. So why not build around him rather than Zach Wilson, who is a big question mark? I like his skill set, but there's a lot of other guys. And playing the patient game, realizing, okay, I'm going to build around what I've got. I couldn't trade Josh Allen for a big windfall, so I'm going to continue to build. He's still young. I got Kyle Pitts now. I've got Josh Allen. I've got Daniel Jones and Kirk Cousins. Eventually, in season, I might be able to flip Kirk Cousins for something decent, but you got to be patient. You can't try to flip everything right now. It's a rookie Debbie draft, and yes, extra picks would be great. But if your league isn't feeling it, you can't just sell for peanuts. You cannot, because that will hurt your rebuild. So you've got to be patient in a rebuild, and there's certain buy-sell windows. So take your best shots during the rookie draft. Try to get extra picks, especially I traded for a couple of extra 5th-round picks just to put a couple of guys on. If they start to strike, then I can continue to maybe move up. Take that guy that was a 5th round pick, trade him for a future 3rd in season or something. I mean, just try to get the maximum out of every piece. I've still got Cole Beasley on my roster. He's an aging guy, but he's a prolific weapon. And in season, right now is not the time. He's not hot. He's not sexy. Nobody likes a ginger. But in season, sorry, Bill.
No, that's cool.
I'm slamming you indirectly all night long.
No, I'm actually blonde here. So
okay, cool. It's kind of the lighting makes it look. But anyway, the whole point is his best trade window will be in season. And so you've got to recognize off season, rookie season, in season, all of those different buy and sell window opportunities, and just continue to pound away. Don't shoot for the moon with one big, huge trade. Build and realize, and I've flipped teams in 1 year's time with this process. And if you want to hit me up on Twitter, feel free at FF_Skyler399. I'll take a look at your roster and I'll give you actionable items if you want.
There you go.
That's awesome. And Katie, I love the part where you said I snagged a couple extra 5ths, and if one of those guys pops, because Bill and I talk about it all the time. Obviously, he's super duper flex, so it's always super flex with us, But like when the rando backup quarterback comes in because the starter got hurt, like if that guy, if we know the starter's going to be out 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and that first week that backup just like goes off, it's like, yo, do you want this guy for a second? Do you want this guy for a third? And in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, that guy might be a pumpkin again, never to score points. But we snagged, a second or a third, which we can obviously either, like we said earlier, make that pick, or we can do what we said, try to move up, try to move it for a future later pick during. And what you said is so true about like kind of the seasons of dynasty football. Like right now, a guy like Cole Beasley, he ain't gonna get you nothing. He's a third. Oh, I'll give you a 3rd round rookie pick. But during the season, that dude will have like 3 straight games where it's like, wow, he is great. And someone is like, I'll give you a high second for it. All right, cool. Like let's get it done. Let's go. I'm not contending, you are. And I mean, last year in a 16-team Superflex, I bought Andy Dalton the week before he got his head almost taken off for a 1st-round pick. And then I went out and bought Drew Brees for another 1st-round pick. Now, I won the league, but, those are guys that during last offseason, everyone was like, Drew Brees has only got, a year, maybe 2 left. You were, that guy wasn't going to get a 1st during the offseason for Drew Brees. But now, during the season, he's playing well. And of course, I bought Drew Brees a week before he got hurt. But, that guy got a 1st out of me because I was contending. I was trying to get wins, and I didn't care about picks. So it's all about just kind of the seasons of, those rookie picks aren't going to be worth as much in October because the draft is still so many months away. So it's all about, as Bill said earlier, targeting the inefficiencies and building your team up like that. I love it. So on that note, I think we hit all the high notes. So Katie, I want to thank you for coming on. Really appreciate it. I love what you do. I follow you. You're, I talk about, I tell people all the time, if you're not into the scouting rookies and kind of, everyone has an opinion, but like find the people that like really know what they're doing and really know what they're talking about, and give yourself a small group of people to work off of. And you're in that small group of people that I work off of. So it's awesome to have you on the show. We've done a couple of pods together in the past, but it's good to finally get you on here and talking about, one of our favorite times of the year, rookie draft season. So thank you. Please let everybody know where they can find you, what you're doing, and what you're up to.
Thank you, Josh. And Bill, you guys, I love you guys. And thank you so much for the invite. Always glad to to talk about rookie drafts, strategies, anything, whatever it takes. Fantasy football is a great, I would say, sport, but it's a game. It's fun.
Yep.
And you got to have fun with it. So I am at FF_Skyler399 on Twitter. I am the Diva of Devi. You can listen to me on Under the Helmet podcast. We come out on Wednesdays on iTunes and Stitcher Radio. I'm also on Off the Rails podcast, which right now it's the somewhat, but we're going to really ramp it up so that we're more of a weekly show. And cool. I'm on a lot of different guest spots, and I tweet and retweet those. I just did a really fun mock draft last night with a great group of guys from Dynasty HQ, and Jeremy Brown, Michael Sipes, and Shane is the worst, and Scott Connor was there, and Kyle LaPointe, and Shane Swags, and just a whole bunch of really great guys, John Dabari. So if you really want to hear a great conversation about Superflex rookie, it's going to be in 2 parts, and I just posted part 1 on Twitter earlier today. So I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you very much for having me join you.
Awesome. And we want to thank everybody in the chat too. The chat keeps it lit. The chat keeps us going. We had Steve in there. I think he's trying to actually get help for a team in a league that Bill and I are in. So Katie, don't help him. No, I'm just kidding. Katie will help you even if I tell her not to, so it doesn't matter what I say.
He's my new BFF, Steve.
We had J Mike in there. We had our boy Drew in there. We had Lindsay Kennedy. Thank you all. Thank you everyone else who just popped in and just took a look. Appreciate it. If you found us on YouTube, hit subscribe, hit the bell. If you're listening to us in podcast form, hit subscribe so that you know when we're out there. And Bill, with all that being said, we're out of here.
Late.